Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening. It's time!
Hi all, and thank you for joining. So this is the Lights Out MMA Podcast in association with Kimura Sports, which happens to be the best fight wear and equipment brand in the world. Just a casual brag. So yeah, this MMA podcast will be a new segment where we'll be talking about the latest MMA fight cards, topics, and controversy, such as did Khabib really make weight against Justin Gaethje, and what does Dana White's war on illegal streamers really mean? But yeah, make sure to like and subscribe if you like the video. It would mean a lot to us and will be really greatly appreciated. Because to be honest, we have some big plans for this podcast and some genuine interest from fighters. So we'll be doing some interesting things in the future with this. But yeah, I'm Javid and I'll be your host for the MMA podcast. I'm also joined by Faisal Khan, the founder of Lights Out Boxing, Adil Bukhari, also known as Hari, and also Vaseem Khan, aka Vaz. Did I get your name right, brother?
You did, yeah. Perfect.
All right, that's good. Well, yeah, so in this fight, for this podcast, we would break down the upcoming fight card. So the UFC 257, McGregor versus Dustin Poirier. Or is it Dustin Poirier versus McGregor, right?
It is Dustin Poirier versus McGregor, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll be breaking down that card and just talking about, if we get some time, talk about some more topics as well, such as any rising fighters for 2021 and the best fight of 2020. But yeah, let's just get straight into it. Did anyone manage to watch the pre-fight conference?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, saw that.
I watched the press conference. It was a humbling press conference between Conor McGregor and Poirier, which was which is something you're not really used to seeing with Conor McGregor. I think since he's had a few kids, he's sort of learned how to be a bit more humble in front of the cameras, I think, which is different to see.
I think Chandler called it out, right? He said it's the daddy press conference. The press conference of the daddies.
I thought it was a PG press conference, to be honest. I thought Poirier wanted him to bite a few of the things he said, but I think it's all psychological, to be honest, just to get in Poirier's head more than anything.
To be honest, is it me or did Poirier look a bit, a bit nervous in that press conference? I don't know, he just looked quite uneasy.
He looked a bit weight-gained as well. You not think? Like his eyes and his skin looked a bit. He looked to me. It looked like he's going to struggle to make weight.
Definitely.
So that's what I'm thinking. Was it a tough weight cut or?
Nah, he's just scared. Look at his body language. If you look at him psychologically, yeah, he's tentative. You know, when it comes to these big fight occasions, even the fight against Khabib, he's just not there. He just doesn't show up. I think when he gets to that big stage and he knows all eyes on him, he chokes. Especially against the McGregors and Khabib.
The pressure's on him, I think, obviously, because of what happened in the first fight between Poirier and McGregor. I think that's going to play on his mind. And obviously, a lot of people are expecting McGregor to kind of repeat what happened in the first fight. But I don't know why Poirier looked so, why he looked nervous. I mean, he's the more fresher fighter, he's a more experienced fighter. And I think, if anything, he should have learned from what's happened in the first fight and should go into the second fight with no pressure. But again, when you come up against McGregor, apart from Khabib, anyone's going to feel a bit slightly rattled, especially leading into fight week.
Yeah. I think the fight itself will be interesting, because if you look at the first fight, Conor just straight away, bell went, he put it on Poirier. And I think in this fight, Poirier's got to really slow it down. He's got to earn Conor's respect early, because I think in the first fight, he didn't show Conor anything in terms of his grappling, his striking. Conor just put it on him and it was lights out, the minute he connected with that left hand. So for me, I think, Poirier needs to be smart. He doesn't need to rise to what Conor does really well in the ring is, in the cage, is, he'll throw traps, and he's setting up these traps to walk you into his left hand. And I think Poirier needs to be smart. He needs to fight, he needs to start off, fight a slow fight, watch out for that left hand, earn Conor's respect, and then take it into round 3, round 4, into those championship rounds.
I think the longer the fight goes on, it'll suit Poirier because, as I said, he's the more active fighter as well. Conor's only fought once since last year, and Poirier, as I said, he's a more active fighter. And I think the longer the fight goes on, it favours Poirier more. But again, we know Conor's got a habit of getting rid of most of his opponents quite early. So, and obviously, what happened in the first fight will play on the back of Poirier's mind. So it's going to be interesting to see. But I do think if he can take it past the first few rounds, it'll favour Poirier, and I think that's when you start going to work.
Yeah, I don't see it going past 2 rounds, to be honest. Honestly, I think there's certain things with Poirier, like, you know, obviously I think McGregor's is going to test him out in the first round, and then by the second round he's going to knock him out. And it's not like Poirier can't deal with pressure, because if you watch his fights against Gaethje and Hooker, he does. But it's those certain, you know, those big fights. Even the fight against Khabib, he was looking for a way out. He's one of them. He's got, you know, that Anthony Rumble Johnson syndrome against DC. When every time he was getting into choke, he looked for a way out. And I think this is what's going to happen this time round. I think he's just going to look for a way out. He's going to get hit, tagged, and then he'll go, and then eventually just...
To be honest, I think Conor McGregor's style is like Poirier's like kryptonite. Because you see, when Poirier is throwing his punches, he's just like walking forward and throwing his punches straight. He doesn't use his shoulders to cover his chin or anything like that. And that's literally exactly what McGregor needs. He needs someone to like come at him and then so he can counter him. But as Bassam said, that's exactly how like Poirier needs to like play. He needs to be smart about it. He can't just go in and be throwing his big shots, because he's going to get countered. But I think that's exactly what McGregor is looking for as well. I think it's going to be a kind of slow one.
If Poirier fights like he did against Dan Hooker, it'll be an easy night to work for Conor McGregor, because against Hooker he just got hit way too many times, way too often. So if he fights anything like that, it's just an easy night to work for Conor McGregor. Don't get me wrong, Poirier and Hooker was definitely fight of the year in my opinion. But if he fights anything like that, McGregor's going to get rid of him very quick.
Yeah, Poirier's there to be hit. He's like I was there ringside for the Khabib fight out in Yas Island, and he's there to be hit, man. Like he's open. Like Khabib was catching him, timing him nicely. Both with the straight right and the takedowns, and his defense there is a bit shaky as well. So I think it'll be an interesting fight, but yeah, I can't see Poirier winning.
Mm. What do you think Poirier needs to do to win then?
He's got to take it late. He's got to take it into the championship rounds. He's got to avoid that left hand at all costs, because Conor's left hand is one of the best in. It was certainly the best left hand in featherweight, and he's carried the power up to lightweight. So he's got to avoid that left hand. He's got to take it into the championship rounds. He's got to take it to the ground. And he's got to fight the fight at his pace, not at Conor's pace, because you've seen the pace Conor fights at. He's ferocious, and like for me, he's got to slow it down, take it into the championship rounds, and then really, because Conor hasn't fought in a year, and you can train and you can try to condition your body, but there's nothing like the real thing. And so for me, the only way he's going to win is take it into the championship rounds and try to submit the guy.
Yeah. To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a knockout by Conor McGregor in the late rounds. Yeah, it's true. We see him kind of gas out, and cardio has been a bit of an issue and stuff. But just because of how good of a counter fighter McGregor is, I can see him he might go going to championship rounds, going to round 4, going to round 5, not even land one punch. But then he just be waiting for that one mistake for Poirier to make, and that's it. I think it's a lights out. Ignore the pun. For Poirier.
Listening to one of Khabib's interviews, apparently he's going to be there on Saturday night, and he said he wants to be impressed. So if either of these two are looking to land that Khabib fight, they need to be impressive and need to put on a very good masterclass performance. But as Vaz mentioned, McGregor hardly fought last year. He only fought once, and we all listen, whatever you say about McGregor, he is itching for that rematch with Khabib. He'll do anything to get that rematch. So he needs to look good and he needs to win good as well. Anything other than that, I don't think Khabib looks twice at him. But it's going to be interesting, because I do think, as Vaz said, not fought often enough last year. Khabib will be there watching, and we all know he wants that rematch. It's a big money fight. It's probably still the biggest fight UFC's got to offer. But Conor McGregor's the one that the focus is on Saturday night. Has he still got what it takes to become a world champion for a third time? What can he still do at 32 years old? The talks of him looking to go back into boxing, fighting Manny Pacquiao. It's interesting to see what Conor McGregor can do on Saturday night.
I have a bit of an interesting question on that. What do you guys think is Conor McGregor's motivation going to this fight? Like, you know, he says it in his, like, you know, pre-fight, post-conference or whatever. It's like, you know, he's doing it for legacies to, like, you know, make his name more known, be like, you know, be in those highlight reel videos and stuff. I think that's true to an extent. But I think he's doing it strategically as well, maybe for, like, you know, his business, for his brand name, to bring up his stock as well. But like going into this fight, like, money is probably not like a big motivation. So what can be motivating him for this fight?
I think you got to look at the guy, right? So this is a guy who came from nothing, right? He grew up in Dublin. You know, he tried to become a plumber on a building site and thought, nah, this isn't for me. Walked into a gym and became a fighter. So fighting is all the guy knows. You know, he can run a whiskey company. He could run do philanthropy. But ultimately, you know, if you're a fighter, you're a fighter. And for me, like, I kind of believe what he says, what he was saying in the press conference about the highlight reel and the knockout reel. The guy just wants to fight. You know, he wants to fight, and you know, win, lose or draw, he doesn't care. He just wants to fight, and he wants his name to be remembered. So, you know, I think being at home, like, clearly it didn't suit him. You know, the guy's knocking out, you know, granddad's in a pub. He's, you know, doing God knows what with women that aren't his fiance. So I think for him, you know, he needs that routine of being in camp, fighting, being in camp, fighting. He doesn't know anything else, you know, young age, all he's been doing is fighting. And, you know, to suddenly then, you know, get all this money and then stop fighting, you're kind of scratching your head thinking, what do I do? So I kind of believe the guy, you know, I genuinely think he's come back to fight. And that's why we're seeing, you know, he's not about the bravado. He's not about the trash talk. It's, look, just line him up. I'll take him down.
Exactly. I just think, look, he's a global superstar, man. He's just, you know, legacy and all that. Look, I don't think he really cares about legacy. You know, he's some of the biggest events in combat sports he's featured in. You know, the Khabib fight, and of course, was part of the whole Floyd Mayweather going 15. Oh, listen, I've got a lot of respect for what he's achieved, and he is an entertainer. But let's have it straight. He's not here for legacy. He's here for a couple more paydays. It wouldn't surprise me if this is his last fight. He'll go fight Manny Pacquiao. He'll get knocked out by Manny Pacquiao in two rounds rather than 10 rounds like Mayweather did. And then he'll retire for the 45th time in his career. And that's it, man. Conor McGregor's a global superstar. No, he's a global superstar. Look, what if Conor McGregor beats Poirier on Saturday night and he retired? You can't exactly say, "Oh, you didn't achieve this." The guy has smashed it. You know, not in just UFC's had one fight in boxing, and look how big that event was. Can you imagine how big it'd be if he went and fought Manny Pacquiao? You know, I know it might sound a bit controversial, but I would love to see him smash 10 shades of shit out of Jake Paul as well. I'd love to see that. So I don't think he's here for legacy. I think he's here because he just wants to make a bit of more money, and then he's adios, see you later.
I don't know, right? So the guy's going to go down as one of the greatest featherweights. Like, you look at his record at featherweight, he cleaned up the division. He came in, cleaned up, left, right. He went to lightweight, and lightweight he came across Khabib, and game over. So I think I kind of agree with some of what you're saying, but I think he's got unfinished business in that lightweight division, and you know, that's his motivation to be regarded.
I agree with Vaz, what you're saying. I mean, I think once you're a fighter, it's part of your lifestyle and it's your body clock and everything. And I think there's a certain stage. I think he's made that money now. He's rich. You know, when you get to a certain stage, money doesn't motivate you. You've got enough.
He said he's got more money than Dana White.
Yeah, he said that in the press conference. And I think like once you reach that barrier, I think it's just fighting. I think he just wants to explore the Manny Pacquiao, obviously, because it's gonna bring in more money in. But I think he genuinely believes he's probably the best in the 155-pound division. Forget for the sport. Like, I'm gonna say probably Khabib wouldn't be as big as he is now if it wasn't for Conor, because before Conor came, UFC or MMA in general was quite casual.
His last, to be fair though, Khabib's last pay-per-view did flop. You know, Dana spent a lot of money on it, and it didn't deliver the numbers. You know, so there's validity.
That's because everyone in Dexter is like, you know, you've got like one screen, and then like, you know, thousands of people just watching it as well.
Hence to why I said, take the Khabib fight after this, get knocked out, then go get knocked out by Manny Pacquiao, make another 200-300 million, and see you in 10 years' time when you need to make a few more million to pay off a few debts. That's what I personally think will happen anyway.
I think it's a bit of both, you know. I genuinely believe, like, you know, I think he's doing it because, like, he feels like he's got unresolved business. Like, I feel like he's going out kind of like, you know, not looking the best. And I think it's an ego thing as well. I think he wants to go out like, you know, everyone looking up to him. He doesn't want to have like, you know, those doubters. He doesn't want to leave the UFC or stop fighting with like people like, you know, saying he's like a crap fighter. You lost to Khabib, you got mauled and stuff. I think he's doing it for also, he wants to go out on like a high note. He wants to go out like, you know, with like making his name kind of thing. You can't go out.
He is a legend. He's achieved a lot. You know, people who turn around and say you're shit, you were this, you were that, then, you know, that's just obviously going a bit over the top. But he has achieved a lot in the sport. Yeah. He is probably going to be the face of UFC for a very, very long time. But let's have it straight. You know, he's what else is there to achieve? I don't think he'll beat Khabib. I mean, I think he will beat Poirier on Saturday night. Don't see him beating Khabib. I think for you're 32 years old now, make a bit of money and then cash out, you know, and a couple of more boxing fights, and you know, maybe you might have learned to have thrown a basic jab in the ring, and then we'll see what happens. But look, personally, I think he's only around for another 1-2 more fights, and then that's it. Adios, see you later, UFC.
All right, let's get the predictions in. What do you guys think for the main event then? Who you guys got then? And then we move on to what this means for the lightweight division.
So I think
Conor McGregor second round.
I go for McGregor in the third round. I think McGregor will stop him in the third.
You know what? I'm going to be controversial. I'm going to say points.
I'm definitely
McGregor on points.
TKO.
On points?
On points, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I just see it play. I'll see it going 5 rounds, you know. I'll see it going 5 rounds. Like either he's going to knock him out in 20 seconds as he's predicting, or he's going to go the full fight. You know, Poirier is going to have learned from his mistakes, but I don't think he's going to have enough in his armory to beat him. So 5 rounds.
I think McGregor stops him in the third. I think McGregor will definitely stop him in the third. I think he'll just have too much for him in the end. It'll be very interesting to see what happens, but I do think McGregor will stop him in the third.
Yeah.
I think the brothers.
Cut out there for a bit.
It's all right.
I don't know what happened.
What's your prediction?
I said I think he was going to win a second round TKO. I just don't see Poirier doing anything different or pushing him to any extent that he's probably going to win. Just see 2 rounds and that's it. It's game over.
All right. So like, what's next for the lightweight division then? Because like we've also got like, we'll come to it, but we also got like Chandler versus Hooker as well. But then there's also Charles Oliveria as well. So like whoever wins out of like, you know, McGregor versus Poirier, what's next for that winner?
I think Chandler's a weird one because I've been watching Bellator for ages and he's been knocked out twice, but he got stopped by Will Brooks on the feet. He got knocked out by Patricio Pitbull, who's 145 featherweight division. But
Eddie Alvarez Hooker.
Yeah, I think Eddie Alvarez beat him in the first one. I think, yeah, he stopped him, I think. He submitted him, I think, towards the end, the first fight. And then he won the second one. And then they get the third one because he went to the UFC. And then he lost to Will Brooks twice. And then recently, Patricio Pitbull, the two of the twins, he went up to 155 and he knocked him out. So I don't know, but I don't see that. I don't rate Dan Hooker. Like I don't see him as the upper echelon of fighter. So I could see him beating Hooker if he gets grab of Hooker, takes him down. I could see him beating Dan Hooker.
But that's what Dan Hooker said though. Like, you know, he's trained for like, you know, the small kind of wrestlers and stuff like that.
But the thing with Dan Hooker is, I mean, if you look at him, he hasn't really beaten anyone of no. Like every time, again, he's another one. Every time he stepped up, he lost to Poirier the last time. I just like he's beaten fighters who are maybe towards the end of their career and going on the way out. But I see Chandler as motivated, and I think Chandler, he's one of the people, you know, who when fighters speak, they just speak to promote. He's quite genuine in the sense that he probably thinks and believes he beats him, and I think he's got enough for a good training partner. He trains with Henry Hooft as well, who coaches him.
K1,
so I think they got
top coach.
Yeah, so I think they got Dan Hooker. I think they got him sussed out.
Okay.
So I hear you. I have it slightly different, right? I think you know, Chandler, if you know, he's got a good standing game. You know, he's a tough guy. He's a good grappler, but for me, he's got to take it to the mat, right? He's got to take it to the mat early, and that's where his real strength is. You know, just to really suffocate Hooker. But you know, you look at what's in Hooker's favor. No disrespect to Bellator, but you know the level of competition. Even though he's lost, the level of competition for me, Hooker's fought against is a lot better, right? So he's been fighting at a higher standard. You know, you look at his attributes. You know, the guy's long, he's rangy, and I think he's going to use all of those attributes in this fight. He's gonna try to keep the fight on his feet. He's going to be using his range, using his kicks, using his jab, and that for me are his sort of keys to victory. And you know, you look at his last few fights. You know, his ground game isn't bad. You know, he's got a half decent ground game. So I think if he can use his, you know, he can use his jab, he can use his kicks, he can use his reach to defend the ground game. For me, Hooker on points.
Guys, would you say he's similar to Benson Henderson though? And Chandler beat Benson Henderson. Like they've got similar attributes, Dan Hooker and Benson Henderson, don't they?
Yeah. But with you know, I think with Hooker, his background is slightly better in terms of kickboxing. You know, he's got he's from a city kickboxing club, and you know, he his pedigree in that sense is a lot better. So I think, you know, that will allow him to kind of really defend the takedowns, and that's what it's going to come down to. Because if Chandler's able to take him to the mat, game over. It's going to be like the main event, you know, on Wednesday, this Wednesday gone. He'll just suffocate him for 3 minutes of every round.
I think it'll be fight tonight. I personally think it'll be fight tonight. I do think it'll be fight tonight. Something just tells me about. I mean, you obviously watch Hooker's last fight with Poirier, and this is Chandler's UFC debut. I do think it'll be fight tonight because these two are kind of like like the sort of outsiders in terms of who really is, you know, the top boy in this division. So I do think, of course, listen, they both want to win the fight, but I do think they're going to put on a bit of a spectacle. So I think you're going to get an all-out brawl. Obviously, if you look at their records, you know, not the majority of their fights go to decisions anyway. And Chandler, this is UFC debut, so he'll want to look good as well. And Hooker's coming off the back of a defeat against Poirier. And you know, if you watch it in an interview, you know, Chandler said that they offered this fight to every fighter in the top 5 besides Conor and Khabib, and Hooker was the only one that stepped up. So, you know, you got to give a bit of credit to Hooker for taking the fight. I mean, especially coming off the back of a defeat against Poirier. But no, I think this is going to be a good fight. I think it's going to be a really interesting fight. And you know, you said that why doesn't people like Chandler? I've watching interviews of him. I don't think he's a bad guy, man. Nicely well spoken. Listen, 3-time Bellator champion, you know, a UFC debut. He's 34 years old, and if you judging by his interviews, you know, he said he wants to be in the sport for at least another 5 years. So it's going to be interesting to see what he can do at this level. I think
it's his style. You know, his style is. His style is what's the best way to describe it? Like me and my son were watching a few of his fights, and my son, he's 5, and he was like, "Daddy, why is he hugging?" You know, he's very frustrating to watch. He's doing all the right things. He's winning the fights, but you know, it's not a fan friendly style, and I think that's why he doesn't get the love that he deserves. But you know, obviously Dana sees something in him, right? Dana's opened the checkbook and bought him over from Bellator, and so it'll be interesting.
I just hope he's not like another gatekeeper of the division. I hope Dana's not brought him over for like everyone to give him an arse whooping and then be like, "Yep, you move on to the next one." You know, keep yourself busy with this guy, because I like him, man. He comes across as well spoken. You can see obviously he's had a long career as well. He's 34 years old. To make a UFC debut at 34, obviously it's a bit of an arse. But I do personally think this will be fight tonight. I think this will be the fight that comes out on top and steal the show.
Yeah, I reckon it'll be quite an interesting fight. To be honest, I'll put my money on Chandler just because of like, you know, his background and like, you know, his style as well. I think he'll get like the takedown and he'll be able to like frustrate Hooker as well. It'll be a good fight. But like in terms of like, you know, why people don't like him, I don't understand that either, to be honest. Like I watched a few of his interviews and like I remember he did like a story where he talked about like, you know, Khabib being the greatest lightweight ever, and like, you know, it was really personal, and it was like, you know, dropping a lot of truth and stuff, talking about like, you know, what Khabib is fighting for, and like, you know, how important it is, and like, you know, like what it meant as well for the lightweight division. And then the whole thing about him, like, you know, adopting a child as well, like with his wife and stuff. Like, I don't know, that shows like a lot about his character as well. So I quite like him.
As I said, he does come across as a good character, and he did label Khabib in one of his interviews as the greatest of all time. So you can tell that he rates what Khabib's about. And I think wouldn't say they're very similar, but in terms of, how they come across as real humble people. But sometimes people don't like that in a person, especially in combat sports. People don't like how humble Anthony Joshua is in combat sports. But listen, it is what it is. You either like the person or you don't like him. But I do like him. As I said, he's a well-spoken person. It is going to be an interesting fight, but I think overall the pressure's on Hooker in this fight because he needs to win, because 2 defeats in a row, definitely not good for your record or your career.
All right, then. Since we're running out of time, other fight on the card, Matt Frevola versus Ottman Azaitar. I think I said his name right. Azaitar. Yeah, that's going to be a really good fight. That's going to be, I'm really excited for that one. Like, Azaitar, I think he's won like half of his 9 fights have all been knockouts as well. And like, he just comes out swinging.
Yeah.
Him and his brother are the Mitchell brothers of this sport right now. Him and his brother. They are brutal, man. You would listen. You wouldn't want to bump into them in like a nightclub or a shopping center, man. Trust me, them 2 brothers, they look absolutely. They listen to the interviews. They scare me. I'm just gonna say it from here, man. Azaitar, I think he's gonna beat the living daylights out of Frevola. I think he's gonna bat Frevola. I think he'll absolutely annihilate him.
Let's be honest, it's a bit of a showcase fight for a minute. They've got this guy.
Yeah, they're feeding into the Lions.
It's cannon. The guy they put in front of him is cannon fodder. It's very much to build up his name. But the guy, everything. I really like everything about this guy. His backstory. German refugee, the way he came up, the way he trained, who he's fought, how he's fought. Yeah, the guy's an animal. You look at his last 2 knockouts. Literally, right hook. Back of the ear, and he just walks off. He's like, "Yeah, I'm done. I'm done with this guy." He
just stands out, doesn't he? He's just like, fucking. You look at him and you think, "Wow, man, this guy is a machine. He's reckless. He is." But I think that's the type of personality you want in combat sports. That one guy who just everyone thinks, this guy. You don't want to fuck around with him. Yeah. But I'm not gonna
lie. Like his technique and stuff, it's not the best.
Yeah.
I think what guys is his aggression and like his power and stuff. But like you watch how he throws his like hooks and his like straights as well. His chin is always out there, and like even in his previous fights, he's been caught quite a few times as well, and quite cleanly. Like I think if he wants to make his name in like UFC as well, he's gonna definitely need to improve his striking. It's good. He's got like the background for it. He's got like the good power, and he's got like the aggression and stuff. But if he doesn't like improve his technique, and if he doesn't get some head movement in there or something, like I think he won't be able to like make in the upper class, man.
Azaitar's camp as well has been good to watch as well. He's had his training camp in Morocco, and they've been inviting fighters all over the world. And some of the stuff they do in training, man, it's just looking at it makes you tired. I like him, man. This perfect character, man. Everyone just looks at him and thinks, "Fucking, I don't want to fight you." But obviously, the bigger fighters in the name will fancy it. But he is an absolute. His nickname suits him. The bulldozer. He's a bulldozer to a tad, man. I'm telling you, he's definitely one fighter that I'm really looking forward to watching on Saturday night.
Hari, what do you make of it?
Yeah, I reckon, to be honest, it's a showcase fight for him. I reckon he's one of them fighters that
bad internet.
Him up, he won't make it towards the championship. He won't win the belt or anything. That's what I think personally. Like, he's there. They're gonna build him. They're gonna build a brand. There's gonna be more fighters coming out of Morocco. And to be honest, that's about it. I don't see him winning a title. Again, I think it's a showcase. Like, him, good for him. I don't see him good enough or good enough. Like when Chimaev came on, you were like, "Oh, Chimaev, like he's good." I can't see the same.
How dare you disrespect the great Hamza Chimaev, bro? What the hell? I'll come to your ass right now.
Do you know what though?
I'm on that hype train all the way. Choo motherfuckers. Like.
Do you know what though?
I was on that hype train before we jumped on it.
Do you know what though? That fight they gave Chimaev is a tough fight. To give him Edwards, like Edwards can bang, man. He trains with Leroy Murphy and those guys, and like the Manchester top team, and he's like, for me, the UFC have mistreated that guy. Like, they haven't given him the fights, and now they've kind of said, right, okay, we're going to give you Chimaev, crack on. And I feel like he hasn't been managed.
You know what? Chimaev is just going to grapple him.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's just going to
It's a good
grapple
card for
Edwards.
Saturday night.
It's going to be, you know how similar it was to Kamaru Usman?
Yeah.
That's how it's going to be.
Yeah. I totally agree, but I feel bad. I feel bad for Edwards, because they've kind of, they signed the guy. They haven't given him the fights, and now of all the fights to give him, they're giving him Chimaev. It's like, come on, man.
Either way, it's definitely a good card for Saturday night. I'm looking forward to it. First card of the year, you got Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier, and then you got Hooker Chandler, and then obviously you get to see more of the Bulldozer as well. So can't knock the card. The lineup's good. It's in the UAE.
Yeah.
Hopefully Khabib's at ringside. Hopefully, might even get to see Khabib come into the Octagon, and him and McGregor might just finish off what they started when they met a while ago. Let's say never know, man. It's interesting. Looking forward to it.
But Charles Oliveria is also in that mix as well.
Mate, for me, he's number three, man. Like when you talk about Hooker and Chandler, Olivier, he's number three, man. He's the real deal. Look at the guy beat Tony, man. The guy beat Kevin Lee. The guy beat Will Brooks. He's done it all. He's the real deal.
And to be honest, he's an interesting fighter as well. Just his style, he can do it on the ground. He can do it standing up, and his stand-up is so sick to watch. He's got this reflexes and the craftsmanship behind it as well. Really interesting to watch. For me, it's a mix-up between what I rather watch.
When I knew his breakout fight was, when he beat Kevin Lee.
Yeah.
When he beat Kevin Lee, that's when I thought, you know what, this is when Oliveira, he's made his presence. That's his breakout fight, I reckon. Yeah. That was the fight he needed. That one fight to get him over, because Kevin Lee was always mentioned. That was the fight.
And that knockout against, was it Gerard Gordon?
Tony Ferguson. I think he was going to beat Tony Ferguson. Yeah, I think he was, yeah. Gerard Gordon knocked him out.
Yeah.
Interesting. I still think, listen, man, Olivier as good as he is, and obviously the other guys, I still think the number one fight to make could be Conor McGregor. That's the number one fight to make.
Who are you guys excited for in terms of rising stars?
Israel Adesanya, man. I'm a big fan of him. Can't wait to see more of him this year. I think he's brilliant, man. Yeah. He's a fucking beast. He's honestly a beast.
He's got a big fight ahead of him, man.
Yeah.
That's gonna. But you know what? My background is Muay Thai and striking and kickboxing. I absolutely love the guy. I absolutely love his striking, the whole counter fire and everything, and just sleek with it. But there comes a point where can you sustain that that weight advantage? When someone's just a natural heavy hitter, how much of a slick fighter can you be to avoid that? So I think it's a dangerous fight. It's going to be an interesting one, but I think that will show how good his kickboxing is and how good his striking is. If he wins that fight, it's just he's up there potentially making his way into the top 5 pound for pound list.
100%. 100% agree with you there. Yeah, he's a beast, man. The guy's a beast. Really interesting to watch as well. He's got a big year ahead of him, 31 years old. Definitely want to see more of him this year, 100%.
Your number one rising star for 2021?
I reckon for me personally, if I say someone, it's going to be Joey Davis from Bellator. I know he's a Bellator fighter, but I think Scott Cocker's got a really good eye and, picking out these young fighters and bringing them through. And the amount of medals he's won, in NCAA, he's really good. He's had about 7 fights already, and he's won about 5 from KO. I see him moving to the epicenter. They've got tournaments running. I think the next tournament they have for the Bellator, he'll make his presence known there.
Israel Adesanya for me, definitely. What about you, Javid? Who's your breakout star of the year?
So this one's going to be quite controversial and quite unknown, but this is Jake Hadley. He's currently the flyweight champion for Cage Warriors. Oh yes, he knows. 4 times flyweight champion as well. He has quite a really good amateur record, but currently in his pro, he's 5-0, and he is sick. He kind of reminds me of a young Conor McGregor, just his stance. He's a southpaw as well, but his striking is really beautiful, and he's got really good grappling as well. His fights recently, his past fights actually, they haven't been against the top level and everything like that. But he has fought previous UFC fighters as well, and he is the current flyweight champion. But he has a lot of potential going for him as well. He currently actually trains at, I think it's Fearless MMA and Renegade MMA as well, and I think that's the Leon Edwards camp as well. So he's got great people around him as well. to be honest, it's surprising that he hasn't been like, he hasn't fought for the UFC yet, but I reckon this year he'll be like, making his debut in the UFC, and he's definitely someone to like, keep an eye on, because his striking and like, his like reflexes is just really good. And like, he's just southpaw and he's really different as well. I really like him. And like, it's just kind of different because like his ground game is really good as well. Like, I think in his past, like, 5 pro fights, I think 3 of them have been submissions as well. He's just like one of those guys, like when he's on you, he's just got really good jiu-jitsu. He'll always find a different angle to like get in and get like a choke or get a submission. Like he's good on both the ground and stuff, So definitely, Jake Hadley, if you're watching this, bro, shout me out. But yeah, Vas, who you got?
So for me, I got 2. If that's all right.
Cheeky.
I know, man. But there's so many names that I like, but if we're talking about prospects, I'm not classifying Chimaev as a prospect because the guys, we saw lots of him last year. We kind of know he's the real deal. But there's a guy in the light heavyweight division I like from South Korea, Dan Unjung. He everything about him I like, and I think that light heavyweight division is there to be taken over, and I think he's the man to do it. So I just everything about him. His stance, the way he carries himself, the way he fights. He's got some losses, but he's bounced back, and I think he's 2-0 or 3-0 in the UFC. So he's got a fairly good record. So I'm excited to see how he progresses in that light heavyweight division because there's some tough names in there. But my other guy, I've seen this guy. I saw his UFC debut out in Abu Dhabi. Lerone Murphy, the guy got shot in the face twice, and his record is solid. He's fought some good names. I was there when he beat up Khabib's boy, and they somehow gave it a draw. Everybody in the crowd was like, "What? How have you given that a draw, mate?" But Lerone Murphy, I'm excited about. I think he's gonna do good things in the featherweight division, and this is gonna be his breakout year. He already had a win.
Judges, man. These judges taking too many flipping backhanders, man. Even in UFC and fucking MMA is happening, man. Let the fans judge online, man. Trust me. We'll do it for free as well, man. Save a lot more money. Sorry, Vaz.
If you're right. But if you're Khabib's boy, you're fighting out in Abu Dhabi, you ain't gonna get. At best, you're gonna get a draw, which is what the judges gave him. But yeah, I'm excited about him. He's got a really good team around him. Manchester-born featherweight. I think he's gonna do good things.
That's great.
Interesting times, man.
Well, yeah. So, all right, I think we're almost out of time. I think that wraps up our first ever MMA podcast. Quite interesting, not gonna lie. But yeah, as we said, we have some really interesting plans for this podcast. We'll be interviewing a lot of other fighters, and we have different topics that we want to cover, and we're going to just be doing a lot of different stuff with this. So excited for what the future holds. As I've mentioned, if you're interested, do leave that like, do subscribe, because we'll have more content coming your way. But thank you, everyone. If you stay till this end, you win £100 Amazon voucher. Well done.
It was so good to not be the one hosting for once, man. Feels better being on the other side. But well done, Javid. And brothers, thank you for coming on, man. Look forward to a good night of UFC on Saturday night.
Oh yeah. Right. Likewise, lads. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening.